I love animation, no surprise there. But something else I also really like is YouTube, and what happens when you combine both those passions? You get cartoon reviewers. Now, I've always found enjoyment out of watching YouTubers reviewing cartoons. Something about watching a bunch of internet nerds obsessing over children's programs feels so inspiring. But of course, I don't love all of them equally. There are some I like more than others, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to share my thoughts on certain YouTubers, some of them you might be familiar with. Just a warning, I'm going to be a little critical towards some of these YouTubers, and keep in mind that I don't hate any of these people. I don't know them personally, I've never met them, and I'll probably never meet them. First, I'm going to talk about the ones I like, then later I'll address the rotten fruits. Meet Pan Pizza, aka Rebeltaxi. I absolutely love Rebeltaxi. If there's one cartoon reviewer I can't get enough of, it's this guy. By watching his videos, you can tell how much effort he puts from his editing and the content itself he has to offer. He brings variety to his channel. When he's not listing a top 10 list, he's reviewing a certain show and recording a podcast. The Pizza Party podcast is one podcast I'm always available to listen. It has great personalities like Nolan, Jim, and Izzy, and you'll occasionally get fantastic guest stars like CH Greenblatt and other YouTubers like YMS, IHE, and Saberspark. Something else I really like about Pan is his personality. He does a really great job using his desperate and perverted personality for comedic effect. And just to add more, he shows himself to have great knowledge of animation. He offers very interesting information regarding the history of certain cartoons, and unlike many cartoon reviewers, including me, he's very capable of showing appreciation for certain elements of certain cartoons. Even in some of the worst cartoons, he has a way to find little things we can all find some enjoyment out of. I really do like Rebeltaxi, and I hope that one day he'll work on Cartoon Network like he always wanted. Or not. Then we have Pie Guy Rules. While Rebeltaxi is probably my favorite channel, Pie Guy Rules is probably the channel I got the most inspiration from. Pie Guy Rules is a very critical reviewer, which is something I immensely appreciate. I admire the level of seriousness in his videos. It gives this environment of discussion where all of us band together and have a debate. But he's not overly serious, as he does balance that out with a few silly moments. He also seems to have a very nice and calm personality. Most YouTubers, even the ones I like, give this angry and whiny vibe, which is not at all bad, don't get me wrong, but it is nice to see some variety once in a while. If there's one problem I have with him, and it's not really something I would say it's his fault, he uploads a lot of SpongeBob content, which is inconvenient to me because I haven't seen SpongeBob, and since his videos never include footage from the shows and only PyCons, I can never get into most of his videos because of the lack of context. But again, that's mostly my fault, and I do enjoy his other videos. He's a YouTuber I rarely disagree with, which is probably a good thing. Now let's get to the ones I don't necessarily hate, but I definitely don't like them, at least not as much as I could. PhantomStrider. I have very mixed feelings towards PhantomStrider. For one thing, I like his character. He has an endearing and calming vibe in his videos, which is something I can appreciate. And when he's not being that, he's being comically angry, which at least in my case, manages to grab a quick laugh out of me. He's also a fairly decent critic. I think he does a good job presenting his arguments, even if some of them are fake. I mean, sure, there are some opinions he has I personally don't agree with, especially his views on regular show Ed, Edd n Eddy and Kids Next Door, but it's still not hard to understand his point of view. However, one thing that really hurts his channel is the type of content. PhantomStrider's channel consists of top 6 and 10 lists, and all of them are either overdone or based on popular opinions. I mean, I'm not going to say he presents his arguments poorly because he doesn't, but geez, Strider, don't you have something else to offer other than Family Guy sucks, Steven Universe is like literally the best show ever, and Teen Titans Go sucks? And that's another problem I have with his channel. He's so repetitive. Because most of his top 10 lists fall into the same category, he tends to recycle a lot of his previous picks and a lot of his previous opinions, and all of that combined with his not so original ideas for top 10 lists, we get a huge chunk of tedious videos. My advice for PhantomStrider is to upload less top 10 lists. Make other types of content. I really don't want to see this YouTube personality fall into mediocrity. And I know some people will be like, you idiot, PhantomStrider uploads other types of content in his alternative channel. And to those I say, shut up. Then we have the mysterious Mr. Enter. This guy gets a lot of hate, which I honestly don't think he deserves. I mean, sure, I do understand where most of the criticism comes from, but I do think he deserves more appreciation. I learned a lot about storytelling and character behavior from Mr. Enter. However, I cannot fully defend Mr. Enter. The biggest problem I have with Mr. Enter's videos is the video format. Whenever he reviews an animated atrocity, he only talks about the negative aspects, and just to make matters worse, he recaps the entire episodes and points out every single little flaw that he can find. Like, it makes him look like an unsatisfied snob, and I know that's not what he really is, but that's the impression he gives. Another problem I have with his videos is he's overly serious. I know he said in one of his videos that he doesn't believe he takes cartoons too seriously, and maybe he really doesn't, but his attitude says otherwise. He easily gets angry in his videos, and not in a funny way, but actually in a hey, calm down, it's just a cartoon way. Again, I don't think Mr. Enter is that bad, but it's not a very enjoyable channel to watch. I would criticize him for his editing, but my editing isn't any better, so I'll shut up. Now I'm going to enter the realm of pure rottenness and terribleness. Vailskibum94. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about his content because there's another video by Avis Reviews which explains exactly why Vail's a terrible YouTuber, and I recommend you watch that video instead. But just to give you an idea, I dislike Vail's content because he uploads daily, and since he's a single independent content creator, most of his videos feel very uninspired and he sacrifices a lot of labor time in editing, script, if he even writes a script, and video length. None of his ideas or opinions feel original in the slightest, and the guy repeats a lot of his subjects. Like, come on, Vail, how many more times are you going to talk about Cartoon Network having terrible schedules and cartoon ripoffs? For once in your entire life, sit down and actually try to offer an inspired and at least kind of original content. At least try. For the love of God, stop spamming videos like a Watch Mojo channel. Although recently the thing that's been pissing me off about Vail the most is his response to criticism. Now, a couple of weeks back, Vail accidentally stole the intro and outro for a channel called Noah David. I say accidentally because he revealed that it was actually meant to be a reference to Noah David. It wasn't his intention to plagiarize, which, by the way, that's absolutely ridiculous. Vail, you have 300k subs. Noah David only has 1,000 subscribers. Chances are that most people who watch your videos have no idea who Noah David is. How could you honestly expect people to get the reference? Funny enough, I saw the comments of that video where you supposedly referenced Noah, and this is without exaggeration. No more than 5 people recognized Noah David's catchphrase. It wasn't until Avis Reviews, Noah David himself, and other YouTubers including me started giving the situation attention that people in the comments section realized that he was using Noah's catchphrase. But you know what? Whatever. I can tell it wasn't your intention to plagiarize Noah David. At least that's what I would have said if it wasn't for the fact that Avis Review made a video saying the exact same things I'm saying right now, and you replied to his video in what was an absolutely terrible response, and yet you barely brought up how you might have hurt Noah's channel, even though it was one of the highlights of the video. I honestly don't think you even care anymore. Oh, and that response you gave was truly terrible, by the way. You brought up how other YouTubers also use misleading titles and thumbnails, and because you're not as nearly as bad as those people, then it makes it okay? What? No, Vail, it doesn't make it okay. Accept criticism. Also, just because you're partially a news channel doesn't mean you're exempt from his criticism. You're also partially a critic, and most of your criticism focus on apply to your videos that you made, news or not news, so accept criticism. You don't have to agree with the criticism, but you don't have to desperately shield yourself like this. And the part you said about if you were a little more familiar with how YouTube works, you wouldn't say any of this. I'm paraphrasing, of course. That's honestly one of the worst counter arguments I've ever read. Rebeltaxi, Pie Guy Rules, YMS, and so many other big channels have been on YouTube for way longer than you, and they are not nearly as clickbaity and misleading as you. Again, Vail, accept criticism. Again, you don't have to agree with him, but don't desperately shield yourself from it. Now, let me just make it clear that I don't hate Vail as a person, but still, really. Now, as much as I dislike Vail, I don't think he's as bad as everyone's favorite nice kid. Oh god, criticizing stuff with Scoutfly is very hard because he doesn't seem like a bad dude. He seems to have the best intention and he just sounds like a nice guy, but boy, his content sucks. At least Vail offers what some would consider news, which is something that at least gives me a reason to check his videos once in a while. Stuff with Scoutfly miserably fails at giving me any reason to watch any of his videos. I don't care if Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network killed their shows, which, by the way, saying that a network killed a show is absolutely ridiculous. No one's killing anything. The shows you like to watch can still be seen in their channels, online, and DVDs. All they're doing is allowing a show that's either heavily declining or was picked up for a crappy reboot to air on their channels. That's all they're doing. If you want to blame anyone for the shows facing a drop in quality, blame the people who are actually working on those shows, which is still not killing. Cartoons can't be murdered. They can be cancelled, forgotten, and even face a drop in quality, but not killed. It's not even a good metaphor for any of the things I said. But about his videos, they're absolutely terrible. He makes videos about very generic topics. He's almost like PhantomStrider, except he does less top 10 lists, which is definitely good, but he makes other bland videos that are very obviously catering to the lowest common denominator. One thing I absolutely dislike about his videos is that he treats his viewers like idiots. He pointlessly spends a lot of time explaining things that are pretty much common knowledge in the cartoon community. For God's sakes, there's a video where he explains how Adventure Time's pilot first aired on Nickelodeon, and he was actually treating that like actual news to the viewers. Everyone and their grandmothers know that Adventure Time first aired on Nickelodeon. And even in his other videos, he calls back his arguments a lot as if his viewers had Alzheimer's or something. And most of all, he's a bad critic. I honestly don't see a critic whenever I watch those videos. I see a nostalgic man either gushing over the shows he likes or passively whining about the shows he hates. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at two of his videos. First, let's talk about his 5 reasons for why Teen Titans Go needs to be cancelled, which had a very terrible thumbnail, by the way, which reflects most of his videos. Throughout the entire video, he did not give a single valid reason for why that show actually needs to be cancelled. He only pointed out why he personally doesn't like that show. Go ahead and watch that video and see for yourself. Then we have the top 5 cartoons that need the Samurai Jack treatment. Not only do I disagree with every single pick he made, with the exception of Flapjack and Chowder because I haven't seen those shows in a while, but also if you pay attention to that video, all of the cartoons he picked were cartoons that he previously put in his top 10 Cartoon Network shows. All of them, which led me to believe that the only reason he picked those shows was because he personally liked them, not because they actually deserved the Samurai Jack treatment. Now I know that that's just his opinion, and it's not because I disagree with him that it makes him a bad critic, but I also believe there's a certain line between objectivity and subjectivity, and I believe stuff with Scoutfly crosses that line. I don't have to agree with his views, but I can at least somewhat understand where he's coming from. And the way I see it, a guy who argues that a show needs to be revived because he personally likes it just comes off as someone who's only gushing over his favorite shows. There are shows like Symbionic Titan and Clone High that were interrupted and desperately need a revival, and you decide to put Ed, Edd and Nettie on the list. A show that got 5 seasons and a movie that concluded that show in a way that no other show could ever top. Although the video that probably pissed me off the most was his top 10 Knicks shows part 2. Part 2. Really? It wasn't even a list where he would only include shows that weren't previously included in his first top 10 Knicks shows. No, at least 4 or 5 cartoons that were featured in this list was recycled from the previous list. What the hell, man? You really don't need to be this lazy. And that's sad because he's one of the most popular channels. This guy, PhantomStrider, and Vailskibum, however the heck you spell this name, are some of the most popular cartoon reviewers. Now, I'm not one to judge who deserves to be successful, and that's not what I'm gonna do. People like these channels and I respect that. Heck, even I watch these channels, even if I might not particularly like their content. However, one thing I also do is hold on to the channels I actually enjoy. like Rebeltaxi, Pie Guy Rules, Alpha J Show, Avis Reviews, Shadow Streak, Nintendo, Gem Reviews, and others. And if there's one thing we can all learn from this is follow me on Twitter. I rant on other YouTubers, there are even more. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye for now.